And he swims over there and pulls his brother, and he starts yelling for his wife. I'm passing out. I'm passing out. She's freaking out, screaming. The kids did not get hit.
They're still on the tube.
But they watched all this. This is all happening. You just imagine how devastating this would be to watch this happen to your dad. Yeah, and he's like, I'm passing out. I can, he can tell. He's like, I'm dying.
Check. Hello and welcome back to The Uncomfortable Truth. We're going to dive right into the Bible today. 2 Kings chapter 6. We're going to start in verse 15. Before we start in verse 15, I'm going to give you a little back history of what's going on here. Elijah is kind of running from the Aramean army. The Israelite and the Aramean army were, I don't know if they're at war. You're going to have to go back and read all this to get like full context. But the Israelites were trying to essentially avoid the Aramean army. There was a ton of them, big army, very powerful. And so the Aramean army, or Aramean king, the king of Aram, had figured out where Elisha, and he was going to get him. And so they load up all their chariots and horses and all their soldiers, and they take off, okay? And they're on this hill outside of where Elisha is staying. And Elisha walks out and sees them, but he doesn't panic. And then his servant comes out and sees him. We're going to start in verse 15. When the servant of the man of God got up early the next morning and went outside, there were troops, horses and chariots everywhere. "Oh, sir, what will we do now?" the young man cried to Elisha. "Don't be afraid," Elisha told him, "for there are more on our side than the side of theirs." Then Elijah prayed, "O Lord, open his eyes and let him see." The Lord opened the young man's eyes, and when he looked up, he saw that the hillside around Elisha was filled with horses and chariots of fire. The story goes on to different parts. They were taken care of. There's some Bibles that say the actual number was in the hundreds of thousands of angels surrounding this Aramean army. And so Elijah's like, "Dude, we're good, man. We're golden."
That's a great. How cool would it be for God to reveal, to you that you are surrounded by angels that are about to fight for you?
They got you.
They got you. I've got you. You're good, man.
Yeah. If you want to read something really cool, read the rest of that chapter. But that kind of flows us into the spiritual realm, angels of the Lord, like guardian angels looking over us. And Shaun had a story, one that he, not firsthand encounter, but somebody that that has a really cool story about this. Huh?
It's really cool. Obie and I both know Bart and Candy Smith, and they are from North Carolina. And in fact, the North Carolina just experienced all the devastation. And
they're right in that area.
Mm-hmm,
oh wow!
Yeah, luckily they weren't affected too bad, but they're definitely from that same the vicinity of. I have a Bible verse regarding guardian angels. This is Psalms 34:7. The angel of the Lord encamps all around those who fear Him, and He delivers them. Bart and Candy, the first time I ever met them, they shared their testimony with us, and it was just an unbelievably moving testimony. And I'm sure Obie can attest to this. It was probably about, 15 years ago when we first met them.
Yeah, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Man, just salt of the earth people. Just
super awesome, God-fearing people.
If they lived in East Texas, I would hope that they were my neighbors,
yes.
so that I could interact with them as much as possible.
Nice.
Yeah,
just great folks.
Question.
His testimony is unlike any other testimony that I've ever heard in my life.
Mm-hmm. So just kind of a backstory of this testimony and how I want to start it is Bart had been praying for his mom to start going to church. She had been struggling on the whole church thing, and he never could say or do anything to get her into church. And it's something he had been praying about for years, is my understanding. And so just fast forward, it was a summertime. Candy, they were at their lake there pretty close to where they live, and summertime, and they were. Y'all have seen the sea-doos that pull the tubes, you know, and then they have to have a spotter turns around on the sea-doo. So they got somebody running, driving, and then somebody turned around there on the sea-doo, and then they were pulling their kids around. Well, Candy was sitting on the dock of the lake there and just watching them, and they were having a great time out there on the lake. And so Bart and his brother were on the sea-doo. And then, brother-in-law were on the sea-doo, and then they had their children that they were pulling in the water. And then over about 100, I think he said it was around 100 yards, there was a gentleman over there in the boat teaching his 12-year-old how to drive the boat, you know. And he was over there, and all of a sudden the boat just hammers down. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the boat threw the dad out of the boat and is headed just nose diving straight for the sea-doo. And Candy is sitting here watching all this happen. Well, it's coming at him. Bart tries to jump off. The boat actually hit him dead square in the chest and threw him like 50 yards back. He gets off and swims over to his brother-in-law. I believe it was Kenny, if I'm not mistaken. And he pulls him up out of the water.
After he got hit with the boat?
After he got hit with the boat, yeah. Big Bart, he's a stout little dude. And so
he is a little, I mean, he's probably, 5'7", 5'8".
Yeah.
150, 60 pounds.
And he swims over there and pulls his brother, and he starts yelling for his wife. I'm passing out, I'm passing out. She's freaking out, screaming, you know. The kids did not get hit.
They're still on the tube.
But they watched all this. This is all happening. You just imagine how devastating this would be to watch this happen to your dad. Yeah, and he's like, I'm passing out. I can, he can tell. He's like, I'm dying. 911, ambulance comes. Ambulance tells Candy he's not going to make it to the hospital. They put like grave on his whenever they were signing the paperwork. And bleeding internally, hemorrhaging. Rush him to the hospital. He's in the hospital for, I believe, 28 days. They had to open him up, and because there was so much internal bleeding, they're like, he's not, he's probably not going to make it, and you need to prepare for the worst. Is what they told Candy.
He was in a coma, right?
Yeah. Candy was there. She never left his side for 28 days. She stayed there the entire time, and just praying for him nonstop. And so Bart said he's laying there in bed, and then one day he gets up and he walks to the nurse's station, and he's like, I need to get out of here. Like, how do I get out of here? Well, as he's leaving the nurse's station, he's starting to walk down the hallway. And he said at the end of the hallway, he saw like this bright light, and he's walking down towards it to leave the hospital. And this person walks up beside him with long, flowing blonde hair, and he looks at him, and his eyes are just like opaque, like clear, just these crystal clear eyes. And he's looking, and he puts his arm around Bart, and he said, "It's not time for you to." This makes me emotional. Wow. He said, it's not time for you to go yet. And he walks Bart back to his bed, and he lays him down in the bed, and he lays down beside him. And Bart immediately wakes up and looks at his wife, Candy, that never left his side, and said, where is the man that just brought me back to my bed? And she said, what are you talking about, Bart? You haven't left in 28, like, you've been laying here. You haven't. And he was like, and he got almost combative. He's like, I want to know where the guy is that just laid me down. And she
waking up after 28 days.
And she just starts bawling and crying. And I mean, he was stone cold supposed to die, 100%. And this his guardian angel walked him back to his bed and laid down beside him. And it was just a pretty remarkable, unbelievable thing that happened. Well, back to what I was saying whenever we started the story. From the time the accident happened, Bart's mom never missed another day of church to this day. And it's something he had been praying about, and he feels like that God allowed that to happen to get his mom plugged in. And he kind of It's something that it's just an unbelievable story, and then the rest of his recovery and what all he has to say about that, and how God was speaking to him, through from the birds to you name it. He talked about this one bird that, as he was healing for the next 2 or 3 months. I mean, it took him like half a year to recover from this, but it is the coolest story to hear. Bart started teaching Sunday school, after that. Has given his testimony probably hundreds of times since then, and it's just such a powerful thing to hear how he interacted with his guardian angel, and it was just awesome.
That's a super awesome story. Have you guys ever had anything relative to that happen to you personally?
I have not.
I haven't.
Nothing like on that level.
I haven't either.
So when you hear things like that, what do you believe them? What filter do you put through them? Like, how do you process that in your head?
Me personally, I feel like that it's it depends on who's telling that story.
Okay.
And so I feel like that we're naturally inclined to think that they had a crazy dream. I feel like that's where, but I also feel like that if you have ever had an experience or an encounter with the Holy Spirit, which I have had that.
Right.
I've never experienced something like what Bart or even really know a lot of people, a handful of people that have experienced anything like what Bart experienced. Mm-hmm. But I do know what it feels like to encounter the Holy Spirit in my life, and what that feels like, and how real that feeling is of having an encounter with something that is not visible. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so
for sure,
I just think that, depending on the person,
mm-hmm.
You may be more skeptical hearing a story like that mm-hmm. than maybe another person. Bart Smith telling that story makes me believe it unequivocally, unquestioned. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no question in my mind mm-hmm. that exact story that he said happened the way it mm-hmm. did. And if you knew this guy, you would be like, there's no question that happened.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And hearing that story third person is not near as powerful as hearing it first person
from him.
And to see, and his wife, the entire time he's telling the story, his wife is just sitting there and tears are streaming down her face. Make no mistake about it, the fact that he lived through that is mm-hmm. nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah, 100%.
And to see that, the gravity of hearing that first person, and I mean, like, I'm just sitting there and him telling me the story and seeing her tears streaming down her face, and I'm just sitting there like just whelping up with these alligator,
You're locked.
crocodile tears. It's it is real. And it is 100% a stone cold factual story. I mean, like, there's no making it up. And just knowing, like Obie said, these people and what kind of people they are, just God fearing, salt of the earth. Oh Christ. My goodness, and hearing, how God answered his prayers, about his mother through mm-hmm. it all, and the lives that he's impacted on top of that, all the way down to this podcast.
Yeah.
From his story is, it's pretty remarkable.
That's cool. So talking about the spiritual world, I'll flip to the other side of that. My wife Courtney was at a youth camp. The best friend she grew up with just always struggled in her relationship with the Lord, and, has had some major ups and downs. I think they're 16 years old. They're sitting in this church service in, I believe, Atlanta, Georgia. Preacher's preaching, and all of a sudden, she just starts screaming hysterically, saying that there are demons flying around the room. She believes. Nobody else saw. Just her. Uncontrollably. It's quiet, besides the preacher talking. And she just starts screaming hysterically. My wife was sitting there, probably right beside her, and could not calm down for I don't know how long. Why do you think assuming those two stories are true, right? Why do you think that God allows certain people to see things like that, and the majority of people not to see things like that?
Would it be as impactful
No.
if everybody had an encounter like that with a demon or with a guardian angel or with, something in the spiritual realm like we're talking about? Would the stories of those particular people have as much of an impact?
No, I absolutely wouldn't. I mean, it would be impactful for me if I saw it.
Yeah.
For you, if you saw it, like those things you hang on to
Here's
forever.
the thing. I think that we all have. I feel like that God opens the door and gives us all the ability and the pathway, a like clear pathway to experiencing Him in a very, very real way. And I feel like that most of the time, I think that this is the vast majority of the people that call themselves Christian, call themselves a follower of God. I feel like that they don't open themselves up to allow God to be extremely present in their life. And so that's my opinion. I think that the people that experience Him, hear Him speak, have that relationship with Him, are the ones that really work at it. I think that they work at their relationship with Christ, and they have the best conversations with Him. They do it consistently and daily. Their entire lives are, truly. We talk about filtering our decisions, our life choices, all of those things through Christ. I feel like that the people that are truly doing that, and every day they're praying, they're asking for God to reveal to them His will for their life. They're asking the Lord to reveal to them Him and in their lives. And I believe that those are the ones that experience the presence of Jesus more, because they desire it more. They're going after Him. They're working on that relationship more. And whenever we do that, we can do that.
Yeah.
And whenever they do that, and those people that have those relationships, I think it's intentional. I think it's on purpose.
I love that. You have to open yourself up to the full experience of God. It's like you can go to Disney World. It's the happiest place on earth, is what they say, and have a terrible time. Or you can open yourself up to the experience of Disney World and have one of the most magical times of your life.
Everybody is going to experience it based off of the way that they come into it.
That's right.
Right?
That's good.
But we're not promoting Disney.
We're not promoting Disney. We're not. Why not, Shaun?
But we
There's
are.
a lot of reasons.
We are. It's a great example.
Yeah.
You experience how you open yourself up to something.
And how are we opening ourselves every day up to the full experience of God?
What are you doing to nourish your relationship with Christ? Because if you desire to feel the presence of God in your life, coming to Him on Sunday morning and on Wednesday night, and closing the book the rest of the week, and not having intentional conversations with Him, and not developing and cultivating that relationship with Him on a daily basis, a heck of a lot more regularly than on Sunday morning and on Wednesday night, I think you're going to have a very difficult time truly feeling God's presence in your life.
Can you imagine talking to your wife twice a week, and that's it?
That's a great point.
Like waking up the same bed, not saying a word.
And if you did, what would that relationship look like?
It wouldn't last very
Fall
long.
apart.
Yeah, it wouldn't last very long. Yeah, we have to talk to people that we want to have relationships with, and that first one being Christ, because that kind of steers everything else that we do. Not kind of, it does. or we can just sit in the car without a steering wheel, and like,
Hope that we get to our destination.
that's right. That's right.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's a lot to think about. Read those verses. Shaun, you said Psalms 34:7, and then 2 Kings. You can read that whole chapter 6 of 2 Kings. That'll give you a lot more perspective on Elisha's journey and what he went through there, and the Israelites and the Aramaean, I think is how you say it, army. Hey, we appreciate y'all joining us today. Hit those buttons at the bottom. Help us reach more people for Jesus. Go kick the day in the face, and we'll catch you on the next one.